Hey guys, welcome to Check Your Leader TV. And today what I want to do is I want to talk to you about a little bit of a project I've had going for a while. I'm working on Italian troops for the Napoleonic Wars. This is the reference book I've been using. It's one of the Helion publications, The Army of the Kingdom of Italy, 1805 to 1814. The Italian troops that I'm putting together, I'm focusing on predominantly from 1809 through to 1814. If you are interested in the Napoleonic Italian forces, I would suggest getting this book from Helion. There are a fair few color prints in it. It is disappointing insofar as that the guard units, the guard foot regiments, the velites of the guard, and the guards of the line, there's no color images in here, but I'll include some images in this video. And if you go online, you'll find color images of them. No worries at all. That said, there are detailed descriptions of the Italian units in this book, so it's really good. Also, the Napoleonic source book. I think it's written by Hathawayt. I think that's the name of the author. But it's the Napoleonic source book, and that's been around for a long time. You might still be able to pick up a copy somewhere, but there's a nice little chunk in that book dedicated to the Italian army as well. But what we're going to talk about in this video is the Italian Guard regiments. Now, the Guards were divided into three distinct groups. You have the Gardes d'Honneur, or the Guards of Honor. You have the Velites, the Guard Velites. It could be pronounced Guard Vilitae. And then you have the Guards of the Line. And so what I'll do is I'll grab the miniatures out, I'll put them on the table, and we'll talk about each one in turn. And then I'll wrap up. I'll briefly touch on maybe the line regiments. The good news with the Italians is they're very easy to put together for an army. You don't have to look for these really difficult, hard to find miniatures, because essentially they wore French uniforms, and in most cases they just substituted the French blue for the Italian green. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, so let's have a look at these regiments. Okay, so let's have a look at the Italian Guardia Real, Royal Guard. Now, throughout, I'm going to try and reference them using their Italian titles. And I apologise, I might butcher this because I'm not very good with any languages other than my own, and even that I struggle with a bit. So let's have a look at this now. The Guardia Real, Royal Guard. The Guardia Real of the Kingdom of Italy came into existence by royal decree on 20 June 1805. Outwardly, it appears to have been organised on the same lines as the French Garde Impériale, with most of the units corresponding with those of that body, although this superficial similarity is illusionary, albeit the Garde Real was, like the Garde Impériale, a self-contained force of all arms. That is to say, the Royal Guard had its own cavalry, its own infantry, its own artillery, its own sailors of the guard, etc. And as I alluded to before, there were three main defined parts. There was the Garde d'Honneur, or Guards of Honor, the Garde Velite, or Velite Guards, and the Garde della Linea, or Guards of the Line. So what we'll look at first, we'll start off with the I'm not going to talk about the cavalry today. Well, I might touch on it, but we'll see how we go for time. But I'm going to talk initially just about the infantry regiments of the Guard. So the first ones we're going to look at is the Velitae della Guardia Real, or the Velites of the Royal Guard. Now, do a bit of the history in the organisation. The decree was created that the Royal Guard specified that recruits for the Velitae should be at least 5 foot 5 inches, that's imperial, or 1.65 meters tall. They had to be between 18 and 25, be able to read and write, have an annual income of 200 Milanese lira to be paid to the state for their training and maintenance. After 2 years service, Velites could transfer to the line with the rank of a sergente or sergeant. Initially, it was planned to raise 3 battalions of Velitae, one of Velitae Granatieri or Grenadiers, and 2 of Velitae Cacciatori. So 2 battalions of Velites. Cacciatori, I think it translates like to light infantry. And each of these 3 battalions, one of Grenadier, one of Lights, was to have 4 companies. The initial plan for there to be a departmental recruiting area was abandoned by the formal regulations of the 19th of August 1805. So yeah, that's the Velites. Now, for my Velites, currently I'm using Old Glory miniatures because they were the only spare French Imperial Guardsman figures that I had. And these guys here, as you can see, these are the Velitae or Velite Grenadiers. And then I'll show you the Velite Cacciatori. So now we see the Velite Grenadiers and the Velite Cacciatori. Now, I think it was in 1809, the Cacciatori adopted the title Velite Carabinieri, which the Carabiniers are the elite company of a light infantry unit are called Carabiniers. So they changed because of their status. It was decided to change from Velite Cacciatori to Velite Carabinieri, and so Carabiniers. And like traditionally Carabiniers, they have, you can see they wear a bearskin. The way you can tell them apart, without pointing out the obvious, the Velite Grenadiers, they have a silver plate on their bearskin, and they have a solid red plume and solid red epaulets and fringes. The Carabinieri, they have a solid green plume with a red tip, no plate, and they have green epaulets with red fringes. There's not much difference, but it's noticeable, I think. Like I said, these guys were eligible after 2 years service to go into the line regiments as sergeants. So the Velite, the regiment of Velites, basically was like a non-commissioned officer training school for the line regiments. It's interesting to note that both of these belong to the same regiment. So they belong to the Italian Velite Guards, but the regiment of Velite Guards, but they are separate battalions within that regiment. Like I said, Old Glory miniatures, they just happen to be the handiest miniatures I had at the time. My intention is eventually I'm going to swap these out to use either Perry or actually not Perry, piano miniatures, French Old Guard miniatures, and I'll paint them up as these Italian Velites. So that's the Velites. Now it's interesting to note problems with recruiting meant the 3rd Battalion was not actually raised until the 9th of March 1808, and even then only with the establishment of 1 Grenadier and 1 Cacciatori company. So that 3rd Battalion was a half battalion size. On the 15th of November 1810, however, the lack of recruits caused the 3rd Battalion to be disbanded and its personnel transferred to the other 2 battalions. Therefore, the regiment consisted of only 2 battalions, despite the original idea of having 1 Grenadier and 2 light. That never eventuated. In 1813, the majority of the men who returned from Russia were passed into the line as non-commissioned officers, and the regiment took the field as a single battalion, almost all new recruits in 1813. And I'm not sure if that was a Carabinieri battalion or a Grenadier battalion, but I'll look into that. During the 10 years of its existence, 3,679 passed through the regiment, and a large percentage of whom actually did progress into the line as NCOs. And just one other little bit of information. From the 17th of January 1811, it was decided that velites with 5 years' service who had not transferred to the line would no longer be required to pay the annual fees that was it 200 or 2,000 lira, 200 Milanese lira. So after 5 years of forking over the dosh, they stopped having to pay it. So obviously these velites were from well-to-do families, and obviously, like the French Guards d'Honneur in the French Imperial Guard, it was an appeal by Eugene Baramas to encourage wealthy families to have their sons come into the Royal Guard and therefore curry favour, I guess, with the Viceroy. So that's the velites. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the senior regiment of the Italian Guards, which is the Guards of the Line, or how we would pronounce it, the Regimente di Fanteria della Guardia Reale. That's the infantry regiments of the Royal Guard, and the line. The first one we'll look at is the Grenadiers. Now I've used Perry miniatures. I just took the elite companies from the I think it's the 1807 through to 1814, or 1807 to 1812 box set. The ones where the guys aren't in greatcoats, whichever one that is. But Perry Plastics, I took elite company guys and I concentrated them. I got 20 odd of them and a mounted officer, and I put them on. I'll base them up, 4 bases as I traditionally do. 24, generally speaking, 24 miniatures to a base, and I've painted these guys up as the Royal Guard Grenadiers. Now the Royal Guards of the Line, again, it's a little bit different from the French Imperial Guard. The French Imperial Guard have the Guard Grenadiers and then the Guard Chasseurs, and they're 2 separate and distinct corps within the Old Guard. The Italian Royal Guard, you actually have Grenadiers and Cacciatori Guards. So the Grenadier Guards and the Cacciatori Guards, they share a singular regimental structure. So this is the Grenadier Battalion of the Royal Foot Guards, and then you have a Cacciatori Battalion of the Royal Foot Guards. And just like the velites, in I think it was 1809, they change from being Cacciatori to Carabinier. So going forward from that date, you have Grenadiers of the Guard and Carabiniers of the Guard. And for the Carabinier Regiment, I intend to use, like I said, the Piano War Games, Piano War Game miniatures, because I can print them myself, and they are really, really nice miniatures. A little bit of history of the Royal Guards. The senior infantry of the Royal Guard was created by decree 26th of June 1805, and was created from and absorbed the infantries of the Grenadier and Cacciatori della Guardia del Presidente, or the Presidential Guard of the defunct Italian Republic. Although often considered as 2 units, the Grenadieri and the Cacciatori were officially the 1st and 2nd battalions respectively of the same regiment, and shared a single regimental staff, as I've already alluded to. The regimental strength was laid down as a regimental staff and 2 battalions, each of 5 companies, and an order of 14th of March 1808 confirmed this. So again, a regimental headquarters and then 2 battalions, 1 grenadiers and 1 carabiniers. And like the Villettes, the grenadiers, they have a silver plate on their bearskin and a solid red plume and red epaulets with red fringes. The carabinieri, a bearskin devoid of a plate with a green plume with a red tip, and then red epaulets, green epaulets with a red fringe. And so that's the Royal Guards. And again, like the Lights of the Guard, these guys saw a fair bit of action as well. So again, that distinguishes them a bit from the French Imperial Guard. These senior regiments tended to see a fair bit of action. Okay, so now the next unit from the Guard of the Line that we'll look at is the Conscritti della Guardia Reale, also known as the Conscripts of the Royal Guard. From 1813, they would be called the Cacciatori della Guardia Reale, or Cacciatori of the Royal Guard. The nomenclature of the conscript was taken away after the 1812 campaign. They basically fought pretty well in 1812, so the conscript aspect of the name was removed. Now, the Conscritti della Guardia Reale was raised in 1810 following an initiative by Eugene to increase the size of the Guard along the same lines as they increased the strength of the French Imperial Guard, affected by the raising of the Young Guard regiments. Like these latter French regiments of the French Imperial Guard, these guys were to be recruited from the best of the conscripts with a height of at least 5'8" Imperial. And the intention was, as in with the French Imperial Guard, the Young Guard, that suitable candidates from the rank and file would, after 2 years, be transferred into the line regiments as non-commissioned officers. The regiment was raised with the strength of 2 battalions initially, each of 5 companies and a regimental staff. And the companies were to be of the same establishment as the Velite regiments. So, set number of captains, a set number of musicians, a set number of majors, etc. So they were basically built along the same lines as the Velites of the Guard, so they would mirror them. But obviously, these guys were basically brought in from the conscript class. So to replicate this regiment in miniature, I'm using the Perry 1807 to 1814 box set of Elite Company miniatures. These are Elite Company type miniatures from that box set. So they've got the epaulets and the tall plumes on their shakos. And so that's the ones I've used for this. I will be making up at least another battalion of these guys. And again, I'll be using the Piano War Games Elite Company miniatures. As long as there's a shako with a tall plume and they've got epaulets on their shoulder, essentially that's all you really need to know. Yeah, so they're kind of like the Young Guard of the Italian Royal Guard, but obviously they're not referred to as Young Guardsmen. How would I rate them? I'd probably class them as grenadier quality, or maybe even veterans. Yeah, that's where they would sit. As for the Velites and the Grenadiers and Carabiniers of the line of the Royal Guards, those guys, I might be tempted to rate them as elite, because generally speaking, the Italian Royal Guard performed pretty well. In early 1811, I should add that each of these regiments was augmented with an artillery support company comprising of 2 3-pounder guns and caissons, a 4-horse ambulance, and a 6-horse caisson for supplies, 2 caissons for ammunition of musket cartridges, a 4-horse wagon for the administrative papers, etc., and a field forge to be drawn by 3 horses. So you could see that they really were developing into as I stated at the very start, an independent all-arms corps within the Italian army. They all fought in many battles. What else can I tell you? The conscript grenadiers, or the conscripts of the Guard, which later became the Cacciatori of the Guard. They eventually reached a strength of 4 battalions. And you did hear me right when I said 5 foot 8 inches, which is taller than the minimum height requirement for the Velites. Because these were the pick of the conscripts, so they did get the tallest conscripts in the Italian army went to the Guard conscripts, later Guard Light Infantry. So that is the Guard Infantry of, like I said, I'm going to add probably another 2 battalions, maybe 3 battalions to these guys here. Definitely going to add a Carabinieri battalion to my Royal Guards, and the Velites of the Guard. I'll be swapping these guys out with piano miniatures, but these old glory chaps have served me well, and I've actually got them on the table and had a fight, so that's nice. Okay, so that wraps up my little presentation on the foot regiments of the Italian Guard. I'll just briefly touch on the cavalry and the artillery. Maybe I'll do another video later in relation to them. So the cavalry of the Royal Guard comprised of the Guardia Reale d'Onore of 4, later 5 squadrons, so a Guard of Honor. The Dragoni della Guardia Reale of 2 squadrons, so that's the Dragoon Guards, and the Gendarmeria Scelta del Guardia Reale, 1 company, so a company or a squadron of gendarmerie. Now, the Dragoons of the Guard are very, very similar in appearance to the Empress Dragoons, so you shouldn't have any problem replicating them at all. I would just buy a set of Empress Dragoons from, well, I would get them from Perry, but hey, anyone, there's lots of companies that make Empress Dragoons, and away you go with that. The Guards d'Honneur are a little bit more of a problem. Their uniform is quite distinctive. Their helmet, for example, it's a bit like a Carabiniers helmet, but it has an eagle crest, plume, and then a plume across the top of it, as you can see in these images here. So I'll just quickly talk a little bit about the Garde Reale d'Honneur, the history and the organisation. The unit had its origins in the city guards of honour that had escorted Napoleon on his entry into Italy, even before the kingdom was proclaimed. These aristocratic bodies were not strictly military units in any sense, but were akin to the local landed classes, dressing in military uniform to feel important for the day. Napoleon disbanded these local groups with the intention of using their manpower to form Royal Guards of Honour and tie himself closer to the aristocracy of his new kingdom. The 4, later 5 companies of Garde Reale d'Honneur of the Royal Guard were each recruited from one of the 4 principal departments of the kingdom and bore the subsidiary title of that department. And the recruiting departments was the 1st Company Milano, 2nd Company Bologna, 3rd Company Brescia, 4th Company Romagna. Now, it should be noted that each of these companies of Guard d'Honneur, they had their own distinct different facings. There was a set of colours from 1805 to 1810, and then in 1810, they changed again, just to make things a little bit more complicated, and they kept these new facing colours from 1811 through to 1814. So the regiment was considered a training school for officers and other ranks as officer cadets who could be promoted into the line cavalry regiments with the rank of 2nd lieutenant after 2 years' service. So again, we see this recurring theme of a guard unit being used as a training school for line regiments. All rank and file were required to be literate in both Italian and French, and to have a private income of at least 1,200 Milan lira per year, which, as in the Velites, was to be paid to the state. The initial voluntary enlistment from the sons of the wealthy proved to be unpopular, and enlistment was therefore subsequently made compulsory for any who fulfilled the criteria. Discipline and duties were light, and the companies even had their own grooms. Probably for this reason, the unit proved less than successful when it participated in the 1809 and 1812 campaigns. Now, replicating this regiment on the table is going to be a little bit difficult because I don't think anyone actually makes a Italian Guard d'Honneur miniature in 28mm or in 15mm for that matter. I could be wrong. But I went to the Blunders on the Danube blog on the internet. Just type in Blunders on the Danube. I'm sure you'll find it. And the fellow there, he's used Perry Dutch Belgian Carabiniers, the ones with the helmets, and he's used them. Now, obviously, the eagle crest that holds the caterpillar plume on the top is not present, but if you don't look too closely, you won't notice it too much. And of course, they have the Dutch Belgians have their coats rolled up across their chest, and they don't have the aliquot all the fancy stuff hanging off the shoulder. So that's not moulded either. But you could always just, on deployment, that might have been removed and tucked into the baggage somewhere. So that's one option, and it looks like a pretty good one actually. I might go down that path myself if I decide to replicate this unit. The other unit, of course, like I said, you've got the Dragoons. Easier the Royal Dragoons, easy to replicate, and the Gendarmes d'Elite. It's a very, very small unit. Maybe you could produce one base and attach them to one of your other Italian cavalry regiments, either the Guards d'Honneur or the Dragoon Guards. So now just a brief history of the Dragoni della Guardia Reale, Dragoons of the Royal Guard. This unit was actually raised by merging the two existing cavalry units of the Presidential Guard, the Horse Grenadiers. They formed the first two companies of the Dragoni, and the Chasseurs de Cheval, who formed the second two companies. Although the decree was created, the regiment ordered that it was to be recruited from the men of the line cavalry with at least 5 years service and an unblemished record. So these had to be troopers of, plenty of experience and good conduct. An order of 11 August 1808 said that the regiment should be mounted on bay horses except for the trumpeters. They were to ride greys. For the artillery of the Guard, I think that would require a video all of its own. Suffice to say that there were companies of artillery that were brought over from the Italian Republic that were converted and made part of the Guard. But there was a foot artillery regiment. In 1811, a decree that ordered the raising of a regiment of foot artillery. It made no mention of the uniform for it. However, there is a letter in the State Archives of Milan asking for information about the new regiment's uniform, and the same document contained the following answer. The foot artillery will have the same uniform as the artillery of the line, except for having vertical pockets to the coat, as in the other Guard corps. Officers and artillerymen will have the bearskins of the gendarmerie. So producing this regiment of artillery wouldn't be too hard. I intend to grab the Napoleonic French foot artillery set 1804 to 1812 from Victrix, because it does give you an option there to create French foot guard artillery. And like I said, the uniform's virtually identical, just a change in colour, but they do have that peaked bearskin. As for the horse artillery of the Guard, their uniform is almost identical to the French horse artillery of the Guard. So I think we'll wrap it up there for this video. If you've got any questions about the Italian Royal Guard, just pop them in the comments, and I can always dive in my references and hopefully I'll be able to answer it for you. And other than that, if you've picked up some errors that I've made, please just pop a correction in. That's for my benefit and anyone else that happens to be watching this. Okay. So that concludes this video on the Italian Royal Guard. If you like what you've seen, like, share and subscribe. Feel free to put any comments in the comment section below, and we'll just wrap it up there. At the moment, the next thing up on the channel, I'll be doing continuing with the 1815 What If campaign I've got going on with Steve over at Basement 1908, and also some more tactical tips for GDA version 2 coming up shortly. I might not be able to get to this content uploaded as quick as I'd like, because currently I've actually got I'm suffering a lot of pain actually in my lower back. Damaged my back in 1987 in my younger days when I was a paratrooper in A Battery, Royal Australian Artillery, and the Air Force decided that dropping me in trees was a much better option than actually putting me on a drop zone. I've been suffering some considerable pain in my lumbar, and so tomorrow I'm having an MRI. I've already seen a surgeon, and I might have to have surgery on my lower back because it is excruciatingly painful. Actually, just standing here now is it's quite painful. So there's that happening as well. But regardless, I'm going to try to get those videos up in due course with a bit of luck. Also, I'm seeing a physiotherapist tomorrow, and that might do something to help with give me a little bit more mobility. So we'll wrap it up here. Like, share and subscribe if that's what you want to do, and I will catch you on the next one. Ubique.